So Birdman was playing. It was between that and Dumb and Dumber 2 and Nightcrawler and Birdman. And I said, well, I'll go see Birdman. So that's what I went to go see. I'm glad I saw it. I wish I would have seen Nightcrawler.
That's great.
Because I think Nightcrawler is probably more my speed.
Mm-hmm.
But Birdman, I just I wanted to love it, and I really didn't. I mean, I was annoyed by the direction of that movie. I felt like Iñárritu wanted to make it some kind of visual virtuoso stunt, and he did so at the expense of what the movie was trying to say. I didn't feel like I felt like he needed to get out of the movie's way. The thing about it is, I think it had moments in there, and it could have tapped into some really great humanistic points about how we all need, because this is what's interesting about it. The story and the themes that the movie talks about, if you think about the character arc, it's extremely ordinary, because you can see it as, this is a very, very self-centered person that defines their life by this little the self-validation thing that comes from art, and he's missing the bigger picture. And then once he finds out, once he opens his heart to the love of the people that truly matter and what truly matters in life, that's when he can truly take flight. And that's like the most ordinary kind of theme you can put in a movie. So he wanted to throw in every single hokey effect that he possibly could to cover that up. I thought if it was told more genuinely and truthfully, it would have been a much more effective movie for me.
So basically, you just don't. The thing that you don't like about it is that it's gimmicky. Is that what it is?
It's
you don't like the gimmick?
Over-directed. It's over-directed.
Over-directed. Well, see, I mean, I like a movie that gives me a visual experience and treats ordinary themes in an unusual way, and so. I just don't understand that criticism, really. I mean...
Well, the criticism is do it in a way that contributes to it and doesn't distract from it. And for me personally, it distracted from it.
Well, why? I mean, why?
Why would the explosions and turning into a bird and levitating and the pyrotechnics of being able to move things with your mind, why would that distract from the themes of the movie?
Is interesting. Well, it's interesting in the sense of our collective fascination with fantasy worlds. I think that's what all that stuff is commenting on, and because the movie does have a point of view of like the sort of what I was just railing against. So
I know, but
comic book movies taking over and.
Well, I think that's what the director thought he was trying, because he hates those movies. He has said he really does. He realized, I think mainly, more specifically, I think the Nolan movies he really can't stand. But I think what I saw it is with all the Jamie, with the special effects and with all the stuff, the fantasy elements and all that, is that as much as he wanted, to try to get away from this character, he can't, and he's always going to be in this character's shadow and everything, and he actually identifies with that character.
I think that's true. I
really think as much as you try to escape it, that's who he is. Remember when he's talking to the foreign journalists, and there was a talk about was it Birdman 4 or whatever, and they got so excited there was a Birdman 4. I mean, they got so. I mean, it just shows you how something that I'm sure. Many actors who get, so identified with a big role, commercial property, want to escape, but it's just, unfortunately, for some of them, it's unavoidable. They just can't do anything else.
And I felt like the movie was about him sort of just accepting that part of his life, as being as much part of him as anything else, his loftier goals. And plus, I thought the movie was, didn't you think the movie was funny and well acted and okay, so you think
I
that
thought
the
it was
whole
well acted, yeah.
So the one shot thing that came across as a gimmick to you. So did that distract?
Why was that distracting? I just mentioned elements of the movie that are all the way through, just not in one shot.
Well, I mean, they don't really pull out the Birdman and all that.
Okay, the very first shot
until the last 30 minutes.
The very first shot, he's levitating.
It's
all the
true.
way through
he's
the movie, he's
in the
moving
very
shit
first
with
shot.
his mind. So don't try to tell me it's one shot in the movie that I have a problem with.
Okay, but I mean, I just don't understand why, the levitation and the moving things with his mind and stuff.
Because I'm looking at it and thinking, what the shit does this have to do with anything? Stop showing off with your gimmicky shit and tell the story honestly. It's like you have to set an impossible goal for yourself and that's untruthful to the material.
I disagree. I thought that like for instance the moving of the levitation and the moving things with his mind and stuff. I just think that that's just something to illustrate his ego. I don't think that's So I mean, I think that's fine. I think it's
that's
just
what I was thinking too. To an extent.
I just think that that's a sort of inventive, fun, visual way of doing that, rather than pages of dialogue with someone lashing out at him for his big ego or whatever. I think that was just
I mean, the movie does have
portray
the movie does have, by the way, pages of dialogue about ego, so that's adequately expressed without all the gimmickry.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I just looked at that as sort of like it's like do you I looked at that as like icing on the cake, like the little roses on a cake or whatever, It's like, well, do we really need these roses on this cake? We just want the cake, for God's sake. So I mean, I just looked at that as just, great little trifles, and I thought the movie was just absolutely transportative. I just thought it took me to another world, and that's what I responded to in it. And as far as like what it has to say or whatever, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if I got any kind of like overarching, big message from it. I just enjoyed it as a story about an actor.
I mean, it doesn't have to be a big message film. Like we need to unite to feed people in Africa, but every movie's about something that's worthwhile. It's about something, and this movie's about something.
I think that film was about a character coming to terms with his past. A past that a lot of people would die for to have, that he considers, basically an albatross around his neck. I guess that's a bird reference there, but I mean, that's the way he looks at it, and so I like the way that they treated it.
I thought she said it best. The Emma Stone, when she tells him all this stuff that you're afraid that you won't matter anymore, and she says, "Wake up, none of us matter." In the end, that whole little exchange that none of us, we're all trying to stay relevant and everything, but no, we're just.
Well, that was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite scenes in the movie, because that was one of the scenes where he just focused on an actor and didn't fucking show off every second and distract him.
Right.
And I think that every character in that movie has a different relationship with ego and a feeling of self-worth, and they express it differently. Their defense mechanisms come up in a different way. I think that's what the movie's about, and so I have no problem with what it's about. I just have a problem with how it's about it. And there's some movies that just strike me that way. Oliver Stone, I completely understand why he made Natural Born Killers in the way that he made it, because all of that flair was in service of the piece. It was the point of the piece. Other Oliver Stone movies, when he does that crap, like the few sections where he does it in Nixon, I kind of roll my eyes and I'm thinking, this really doesn't belong here, or Any Given Sunday, or any of that crap. It just doesn't work for me in those particular movies. And it's the same with Birdman. That technique, that approach did not work for me with the material of Birdman. That's all.
Okay.
No, it's a fair criticism, and what I like about this, though, what I really liked about this conversation is that, a lot of times, I see a lot of these like art house films or the Oscar baity films that got everyone's raving about in the festivals and everything before. I think everyone's expected to really like bow down and worship them, and it's nice to have some disagreement, and I think that's good. I think that's very healthy. I understand what you're saying, because you could make the same argument, I guess, about Babel. And some,
or any average Martin Scorsese movie, for that matter.
True.
Yeah. I mean, I think that what Scorsese's approach gives his movies is a sense of pacing, and I didn't feel that way with Babel. I mean, I was lukewarm on Babel, but the only gimmick in that, the gimmick in that was just the three, right? The three interconnecting.
That's kind of stories.
You know, no, but that is a gimmick though, and it is something that.
But then take Babel and then say, okay, but I want to do it all in one shot.
Oh God,
it's not necessary.
I like the one-shot stuff. I really loved it. I thought that the movie was a complete, lovely magic trick, and I was just wondering how it was all done, and I loved it. I mean, I don't know why people wouldn't dig something like that,
I actually think there's it's something that Tony Macklin brings up in his review. The better discussion may be the approach to have, why Raymond Carver? Why this story by Raymond Carver? What is it, as opposed to what Robert Altman did with Shortcuts and then the famous Australian film from the guy who made Lantana a couple of years ago. He also made a movie based on stories by Raymond Carver. But, why he doesn't seem to think that this really does any great service to Raymond Carver, was what I got from Macklin's review. I'm not sure. But I thought it was interesting. Someone who was also an alcoholic, not after his death, I think is more famous than he was when he was alive. So I think there's an interesting comparison to why Michael Keaton his character felt so why he wanted to do this Raymond Carver story. I think there's something to dig in there. I think there's definitely some worthwhile discussion to be had there.
Well, you must have loved Michael Keaton in it, right?
I mean, it was great to see him, and I think that he had some really good opportunities in the movie.
Did you think it was like The Wrestler? Do you think it was like The Wrestler where Mickey Rourke really mirrors own life, mirrors the character in The Wrestler? Did you also
the scene where Michael Keaton stapled his own head was amazing.
Right.
Anyway, and I understand the energy that a single take brings you, and the fact that this takes place largely in the theater, where if you look at it from a cinematic point of view, that's all in one take, a theatrical production. And
that's true.
I understand thinking behind it. I can dictate to you the defenses for the same things that I had issues with. I just thought they were.
It just wasn't a movie for you. So, and I think that's a fair thing to say in a piece of criticism, is to say, look, I understand why some other people would like it. It just wasn't for me. And I wish that would be something that a lot of critics would say. It's like, look.
It should have
been
deal. I mean, I've spent probably 3/4 of my life in the theater. And I've just from a surface standpoint, that's the only New York theater I've actually been in, is the St. James and see the production there. So that was cool. But I could point to the auditorium, and actually I could point out the seat that I was sitting in when I went to see a production there at St. James.
That's funny.
Yeah.
As an actor, though, did you think it was not true to the theater, the movie?
No, it was fine. No, it was
okay.
fine.
I was just curious. I just want to know. I mean,